Hello, I'm Neha Cherian, an editor with The Fifth Estate. Today I have with me Jyotiraditya Menon, who's contesting for the post of Cultural Affairs Secretary Arts. So Jyotir, the first question for you. What is your opinion on merging the positions of Culsec Lit and Culsec Arts, since there is no meaningful distinction between them anyways? Why not have just one secretarial position for the cultural sphere with a different selected Sarang head under the cultural secretary, as happens in other IITs and the co-curricular sphere at IITM?
Right. So to answer the first part of the question of why there are two cultural secretaries, the scale of how Sarang and Sangam is conducted now is very huge. So that requires two people to handle it, since all the teams work from Sangam itself. They work throughout the semester to work for Sarang. And not having just a Sarang head would anyway be dependent on the clubs, on the teams who are working for Sangam as well. And how in other IITs it works is that they have separate teams for their cultural festival and separate team for their institute culturals. But this will just create redundancy, because in our system, these clubs which work throughout the year work for Sarang as well. And that is why I believe we should have two cultural secretaries and not a Sarang head under a single cultural secretary.
All right. The second question for you. How do you think the cultural contingents have performed in this first completely offline year since 2019? What problems have you identified with regards to the cultural contingent, and how do you plan to address them?
Right. So to answer the first part of the question, I believe it was a very good year, considering that it was the first offline year after 2 years online. The cultural contingent attended many fests, and they had podium finishes in numerous events like many fests like Festember, Moodai, Inter-IT, Sarang. Now coming to the second part of the question, the problems that I have identified is, especially with related to Inter-IT, I feel that the cultural contingent did not have the proper mindset or the proper seriousness that goes into the specifically to Inter-IT. So to address that, I would ensure that the cultural contingent is properly sensitized to the seriousness and has the proper mindset for Inter-IT specifically. And there was another issue of knowledge transfer, again, like why Inter-IT, the problems in Inter-IT we faced. So I would ensure that there is proper knowledge transfer, which would be ensured since we have already have an experience of this offline year. And along more than this, I would provide professional mentorship to the contingent, which will ensure that they are performing at their very best and at the very.
Do you think that events like Mardi Gras and Insti Prom increase the participation of the GSP in the cultural scene? Given that most of the GSP does not engage actively with the cultural sphere, what more do you think can be done to reduce barriers to entry and encourage general participation?
Right. So to answer the first part of the question, large-scale events like Mardi Gras and Prom provide a sense of grandeur, and also the main objective is to provide new experience to the GSP and to raise the level of our institute cultures. And the GSB participation for these events have been more than adequate. So coming to the second part of the question about reducing barriers to entry, I feel the problem is twofold: the amount of effort that an average GSB member puts and what they gain out of it. Regarding the effort, my initiatives in my manifesto regarding hostel involvement and social media integration will tackle this by bringing institute culturals to the hostels and giving them proper recognition in Litsoc through social media handles will reduce the effort and will also give them something out of it. And plus another initiative, Art for All, which is low effort art-based activities which improve wellness, would also involve more people, general people, into the cultural sphere.
So Jyotir, in your proposal to provide new platforms, you have suggested that some clubs can publish and distribute their original content. Do you foresee profits in these schemes, or are they only to increase the visibility of content creators? If you see these as profitable activities, why do you think the revenue and royalties generated should go towards Sangam as opposed to being handled directly by the clubs or the content creators?
Right. So regarding the providing new platforms, the main objective was to provide visibility to the clubs and to raise the level of the clubs and the contingent to the outside. And profits is a very good add-on that we will get out of these projects. Now coming to the second part of the question, these projects are mainly pushed forward by the club using club resources, club contingent, club amenities. So that's why the revenues and royalties would go to Sangam. Either way, these revenues and royalties would be redistributed to the club's budget accordingly.
The original idea of Sangam Incubator was to allow members of the GSP to form interest groups and meet like-minded people. In your proposal, club conveners will decide to tack on related events to their existing activities. Does that not take away from the whole point of people coming up with new things of interest that don't already exist in Sangam? Why is your proposal an improvement over the existing idea of Sangam Incubator?
Right. So the Sangam Incubator has been existing for a couple of years, but I feel that it has failed to capture its objective to sustain these interest groups and to engage a large amount of audience. So that's why I feel that it needs an impetus from the club side to expand its activities so that a large amount of the GSB audience is engaged in these activities. Now, I have also had the discussions I've been discussing with the Dost office of providing funding for these club expansions, because since we are doing something new out of it, that's why I feel that it's not taking something away from the people, because since people are still allowed to propose their own interest groups under the Sangam Incubator, but this is just an add-on so that the clubs, expand themselves organically.